Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're letting the hairs on the back of our necks stand upright, because these are the 30 most terrifying moments in horror games. Terror is sometimes subjective, so we've got a good spread of atmospheric scares, context scares, and of course, jump scares. Let's go. Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos. Spotting Slenderman, Slender, the 8 pages. When it comes to stripped down terror, few games keep things as bare bones as the 2012 indie nightmare known as Slender, the 8 pages. The whole experience is basically you, a flashlight, and a forest, so dark it makes your electricity bill cry. As you wander around collecting pages like a very stressed librarian, a tall ghostly stickman stalks you, getting closer each time you dare to blink. And no matter how brave you think you are, the moment your flashlight sweeps across the trees and lands on his faceless mug, you instantly transform into a shrieking, oversized toddler who deeply regrets going outside. The Nightmare Alley, Silent Hill. The opening moments of Silent Hill are basically a tension tutorial disguised as a video game. The town throws a fog blanket over everything so thick you'd think the weather system was conspiring against you, and the only sounds are a creepy electronic hum and Harry Mason's footsteps, which suddenly seem way too loud, like he's trying to get himself noticed by monsters. When Harry follows a mysterious figure into an alley, the camera decides it's time to audition for a horror film, swooping low and rising slowly as if something unseen is filming you for fun. Then, the world casually falls apart, daylight vanishes, walls turn into rusty blood-caked metal, and mutilated bodies decorate the path like the worst home renovation project ever. A siren howls in the distance, because of course it does, and knife-wielding nightmares shuffle in to say hello. Suddenly, those infamously clunky controls feel intentional. And this is just the first 5 minutes. Fun fact, this was the demo for the game that came with MGS1, and I played it at my friend's 9th birthday party when he asked me not to. He got so scared he cried, and his parents sent me home. Worth it. The Margarite fight, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Come on now with me! We're gonna settle this!
The Margarite bug fight from Resident Evil 7 hits a very specific kind of horror. The absolutely not okay kind. First, Margarite herself looks like she crawled out of a swamp, a nightmare, and a beehive simultaneously. By the time the fight begins, she's mutilated into a lanky, screeching insect queen whose limbs stretch in ways that violate several laws of biology. The arena doesn't help either. A rotting greenhouse filled with more bugs than a Bethesda launch day. She scuttles across walls, drops in from above, and unleashes swarms of insects that attack you faster than you can scream, nope! Her jump scares are brutal because she can pop up anywhere, at any angle, like a horrifying jack-in-the-box. And her creepy voice, her unpredictable movements, and the constant buzzing of insects, your brain just decides it's time to panic. Fast zombies in Ravenholm, Half-Life 2. One thing the Half-Life series always nails is the dramatic entrance of new threats, and Half-Life 2 saves one of its most memorable reveals for the nightmare neighborhood known as Ravenholm. While you're perched on a rooftop, waiting for the world's slowest elevator, seriously, why so slow? A distant blood-curdling howl echoes through the fog. Valve clearly looked at that moment and decided, yep, this is the time to emotionally damage the player. Get ready for the classic fast zombie. These creatures aren't just terrifying to look at, they move with the frantic energy of someone who drank 12 espressos then set themselves on fire. Gone are the predictable shambles you've gotten used to. These monsters sprint, leap, and screech as they scale pipes and walls like they're auditioning for undead parkour. With the rooftop shaking, the pipes rattling, and those grotesque throat noises approaching you at Mach 5, the elevator feels less like Salvation and more like an overdue Amazon package. Battling your first ghost, Fatal Frame. Released right in the middle of the world's obsession with Japanese ghost films, Project Zero, also known as Fatal Frame, decides to ask the important question: what if you explored a haunted mansion armed with a camera? Okay, maybe not so important. No swords, no guns, just a haunted Nikon and a prayer. At first, the game plays coy, letting you spot ghosts drifting past doorways or chilling creepily in far-off shadows like they're waiting for their Uber. But eventually one of these spirits lunges straight at you, filling the screen with the kind of face that causes involuntary life reevaluation. The scare is so intense that countless players reportedly paused the game, stood up, and noped their way directly out of the experience. Some even claim they removed the disc and hid it somewhere safe, like under a pillow, or in a locked drawer, or out the window. Being caught by a witch, Granny's garden. On paper, this classic BBC micro title was supposed to be an educational puzzle adventure. You know, the kind teachers recommend while pretending it wasn't secretly fun. Players wandered through a hidden kingdom to rescue a royal couple from an evil witch, solving wholesome puzzles along the way. Sounds harmless, right? And then you fail. And if you fail, the witch catches you, and the game unleashes a failure screen so traumatizing it practically became a rite of passage for early home computer kids. Her cackling laugh echoes, she banishes you with zero sympathy, and suddenly this educational adventure feels more like a surprise horror module. Many veteran players still remember it vividly, mostly because it refuses to leave their nightmares. It was actually banned in many schools, as 80s kids were apparently massive Meeting the Licker, Resident Evil 2. Your first run-in with a licker in Resident Evil 2 is basically the game's way of saying, welcome to the police station, abandon hope. The warning signs start early. You stumble across a headless corpse, and the game cheerfully informs you the poor guy's skull has been twisted off like a bottle cap. Fantastic. Nothing ominous about that at all. Then comes the iconic cutscene. The camera tilts up and there it is, a licker clinging to the ceiling like the world's ugliest chandelier, all exposed brain matter, oversized tongue, and dental nightmares. That alone is enough to ruin your afternoon, but the real terror begins when it drops down and decides you're today's special. And what do you have? A fixed camera angle that hates you, 10 bullets, and the dawning realization that you're absolutely not ready for this. It's pure nightmare fuel, and that's before it even moves. The lecture building, Bloodborne. Trying to pinpoint the scariest moment in Bloodborne is like trying to choose which nightmare you'd like to relive. The game is basically a guided tour of cosmic dread curated by From Software. You've got the cleric beast screaming like it's auditioning for a metal band. You've got old Yharnam, a gothic ruin scrawled with shambling townsfolk who clearly didn't get the memo about personal space. Then there's the Witches of Hemwick, which look exactly how they sound. Spoiler, not good. And let's not forget the late game pregnancy themed body horror, which makes many players reconsider having a family ever again. But the moment that truly sticks with people is entering the lecture building. It's strangely silent, creepily calm, until you notice shadowy shapes slumped in classroom seats. Then you get close, see their faces, and instantly wish you dropped out of this terrifying college. Yuri's final confession, Doki Doki Literature Club. On the surface, Doki Doki looks like your standard anime-style high school dating sim. Cute girls, poetry, and enough pink to cause retinal damage. But then the game pulls the rug so hard, you end up in another dimension. What begins as lighthearted flirting slowly mutates into a horrifying cocktail of fourth wall breaking mind games and psychological torment, making players realize far too late that this club should have come with a therapist. Among all its disturbing twists, Yuri's so-called confession easily ranks as the most haunting. When the story spirals into full madness, she asks you to hear her confession, and no matter what answer you give, polite, rude, or screaming internally, the outcome is the same. She abruptly kills herself. The game then locks your camera onto her body, trapping you there like a horrified audience member who can't leave the world's worst performance. Cute dating sim, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Scissorman's shocking appearance clock tower. Long before survival horror became mainstream, Japan quietly unleashed Clock Tower on the Super Nintendo, a year before Resident Evil turned the genre into a global panic generator. Despite its humble 16-bit home, the game delivered tension so intense it could make your controller sweat. The terror centers around Scissorman, a deranged child armed with a gigantic pair of shears and the world's worst sense of boundaries. His favorite hobby? Jumping out at protagonist Jennifer at the exact moment your pulse finally starts to relax. The game's jump scares are legendary, but one in particular traumatizes players for life. After a girl tragically drowns in a pool, everything goes quiet. Until Scissorman rockets out of the water like a homicidal dolphin with scissors. It's one of those moments where you don't just jump, you achieve temporary levitation. The Mirror Circle Visage. My only goal in life is to make sure everyone learns that Visage is not only one of the best horror games of the last decade, but one of the best horror games of all time. There are only about 1,000 moments we could pick from this game for this list, but we're going with the Mirror Circle. The Mirror Circle is terrifying because it combines psychological dread with unpredictability. As players enter the dark room, they find a circle of mirrors facing outward, each reflecting the dark space behind the player that they can't see. The uncertainty of whether what you see in the mirror is what actually is behind you is what keeps you on your toes right up until the perfect jump scare that reveals itself a beat after the moment you think it would happen, making it land perfectly for 95% of players. The Bear Attack Condemned to Bloodshot. The Bear Attack sequence in Condemned 2 Bloodshot is terrifying because it suddenly shifts the game from psychological horror to intense physical danger, something that players feel ill-equipped for. The player is forced into a cramped environment where the bear's massive, relentless attacks create a sense of helplessness. Its unpredictable movements and deafening roars make you feel like you are way out of your depth. The claustrophobic setting amplifies the tension, and there's no room to maneuver or escape. Raw power against total vulnerability is the perfect combination for fear. Fort Frolic Splicers Bioshock. Splicers are the main enemies of Bioshock, with many variations of them spread across the game, but in Fort Frolic, players get the wonderful opportunity to come face to face with plaster splicers, who are essentially splicers covered in plaster. Are they alive? Are they going to move? Are they strong? All of these questions and more are answered at the perfect moments in Fort Frolic, and it certainly causes some big scares. Deleting all your saves, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. Eternal Darkness's ingenious use of the sanity meter that triggers hallucinations is one of the most impactful mechanics in horror gaming history. Yet this brilliant concept reaches its peak when one of the game's sanity-induced freakouts makes you believe your save files are being deleted. Even when you're aware that the game will mess with you in these ways, nothing prepares you for the true meta terror of thinking all of your progress has vanished. It's a perfect embodiment of a fear that every gamer from a certain era has experienced, making it a masterclass in psychological horror. This movement was only matched by my brother's saving over my Final Fantasy X save. Not a horror game, but truly terrifying regardless. Laura, the Evil Within. The Evil Within is a chilling game overall, but nothing in its early moments quite compares to the terror of encountering Laura, a grotesque, spider-like creature with a human face that bursts from the floor to give you a greeting you never asked for. It's the brutal, sudden nature of Laura's appearance that makes this moment unforgettable. The game doesn't allow any time to process the horrifying sight before forcing you to flee from the creature, whose spine-chilling scream echoes through the room, shaking you to your core. The Rat King, The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us doesn't always get the recognition it deserves for its effective use of horror, but the series' most terrifying moments come when you have to put those goddamn gas masks on. And the worst of these moments comes in The Last of Us Part 2 during a confrontation with the almost indescribable monstrosity known as the Rat King. This grotesque, mutated creature is so unlike anything players have encountered in the game up until this point, and no amount of foreshadowing can truly prepare you for the horrific reveal. You know you're at ground zero, you know that the infected here have had the most amount of time to grow, and yet this moment, and its full-on 90s gore-out horror style, is shockingly unexpected. The Child's Room Layers of Fear. Just when you think you've seen it all in Layers of Fear, you'll find yourself in a child's room where a music box casts innocent illustrations on the walls. The moment you interact with the music box, you are thrust into what can only be described as a descent into hell, where each rotation leaves you dreading what's next. While the scene itself is undeniably eerie, what truly sets it apart is how seamlessly it ties into the game's lore, making you feel exactly like the protagonist, helpless and trapped, forced to navigate a nightmarish journey through your deepest fears. The Wendigo's first appearance Until Dawn. One of the scariest moments of Until Dawn comes when the Wendigo is first revealed and interacted with. This isn't the first time they're heard, and definitely not the first trace of them, but it is the first time you see them clear as day and use the infamous don't move mechanic against them, training you for the final moments of the game. The Ladder, Fear. (2005's F.E.A.R. masterfully combines innovative FPS mechanics with the jump scare horror that was popular in films at the time. This blend reaches its peak in a memorable moment when you initiate a climbing the ladder sequence, only to be startled by Alma, the game's unsettling child, standing directly in front of you. What makes this scare so effective is how it completely disrupts the player's control and perspective, forcing you to surrender to the game. It's a rare, unavoidable scare that leaves a lasting impact, making you question your trust in FPS games from that point forward.
Look, I just got your email. I wish I could give you some more background on this, but it's strictly need to know. Hell, I don't even know what all this is for. For now, look, just focus on the specific contaminants in the task summary.
The Noontech Diagnostic Machine, Dead Space 2.
Just like Straw said. I remember this. The machine activates the parts of our brain where the marker codes are stored. But how does that threaten the marker? What were they afraid of?
Considering how terrifying the first two Dead Space games are, it speaks volumes that fans generally agree the Noontech Diagnostic Machine sequence is the franchise's most unforgettable moment. After all, how else can you describe a scene where you're forced to carefully insert a massive needle into your character's eye? Eye trauma has been a chilling horror device since the genre's early days, and Dead Space 2 takes this fear to the next level by making you the one to perform the gruesome act. Even the developers themselves questioned if this moment was pushing the limits too far. I, for one, sweated through my PS3 controller, and my spare PS3 controller. Running from Mr. X, Resident Evil 2. There have been many memorable stalker moments in gaming, but few can rival the pure terror of encountering Mr. X in Capcom's masterful Resident Evil 2 remake. We knew Mr. X was probably coming, but we didn't expect him to come with such force. That didn't sound right. The most effective slashers and stalkers make you feel like escape is hopeless, and Mr. X nails that feeling perfectly. The initial oh no moment when you first spot him is only surpassed by the chilling realization that outrunning him will be just as hard as you dreaded. Nobody will ever forget the sound of Mr. X's feet thudding through the halls of the police station. The Mirror, Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 offers a terrifying and quiet moment, perfectly representing what makes the series so solid. You enter a grimy room and face a mirror. Suddenly, the nearby basin begins to bleed, but as the blood in the reflection in the room start acting differently, unease starts to set in. The blood spreads across the walls and the floors, and you begin to panic, wondering what's happening and how you'll escape this now locked room. The scene is frightening on its own, but when you realize the blood is the real threat and you need to escape, the pressure truly builds. The visual scares become the threat, and that's when horror is at its peak. The Falling Woman, Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. Fatal Frame is a terrifying series. The mechanics offer so many choices for pure terror, but the Falling Woman from Fatal Frame 2 stands out as one of the series' finest moments of terror. The Falling Woman is a tragic figure who seems to have taken her own life, now cursed to endlessly relive her death. Her tortured spirit manifests in a grotesque form, chasing you across the room. Much like the Pyramid Head sequence, it's the blend of visual horror and emotional unease that makes this moment unforgettable. Everything about it feels wrong, it feels off, it feels so uneasy, and it leaves you not exactly knowing what to expect. The Flooded Room, Amnesia, The Dark Descent. It's no exaggeration to say that Amnesia revolutionized the horror gaming genre, and its most iconic moment has to be this heart-stopping sequence where you must navigate a flooded hallway with an invisible monster lurking. On a purely conceptual level, this moment is terrifying, but what makes it worse is how it doubles as a complex physics puzzle, making the already nerve-wracking situation even more intense, if you can believe it. Are you brave enough to take the leap into the possible path, hoping to spot its movements in time? Amnesia demonstrates that the future of horror would make you feel like you're truly in the heart of terror and without resources. Pyramid Head's introduction, Silent Hill 2. The classic "what the hell is that" moment has long been one of the most effective scares in horror, and few video game moments have done it better than Silent Hill 2, which lands more in the category of what the f is that. In this unforgettable scene, we walk into a room to witness the creature known as Pyramid Head brutally assaulting mannequin-like figures. While the visual shock alone is enough to unsettle you, it's what this moment signifies within Silent Hill 2's warped narrative that makes it truly unforgettable. It's also yucky, yuck, and terrifying to boot. Dog Scare, Resident Evil. There was a brief moment of debate on whether to include this jump scare, as today its original impact is fairly watered down, but we also have to account for historical impact, and the moment when the camera shifts in that infamous Resident Evil hallway just as a dog leaps through the window is a truly masterful scare. At the time, it was a masterclass in terror for other horror devs. It terrified an entire generation of gamers still adjusting to the idea that games could be this scary. And as rare as it is, if someone played this blind today, it would still work. Encountering the Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien is widely regarded as one of the greatest horror films ever made. The developers of Alien Isolation perfectly captured the film's tense atmosphere and terror, primarily due to the Xenomorph's exceptional AI, and this game needs to re-enter the gaming zeitgeist now. While each player's experience will differ depending on how often the Xenomorph catches them, everyone shares the same initial encounter. When the terrifying extraterrestrial emerges from the vent and lands in front of you, it marks the beginning of a terrifying chase. And avoiding the Xenomorph is as terrifying as it gets. This game needs another round of love. Let's just spread it to the world. The Groom Outlast Whistleblower.
Bleed less. I know the fair sex often endure the same wounds with more suffering, but you really need to make an effort.
Okay, I'm trying to keep this light, but the Groom from Outlast Whistleblower makes it really difficult. The Groom has an obsessive desire to find a bride, but being surrounded only by men leads him to horrifying extremes. His victims are subjected to unspeakable procedures in his twisted attempt to create the perfect partner. While I'm not usually a fan of horror that leans heavily into shock and gore for its own sake, this sequence pushes those boundaries further than any game I've experienced. It throws you into an absolute nightmare and forces you to helplessly wonder just how much worse things will get, and it's this disconnect from reality that makes your encounter with the Groom one of the most terrifying moments in the whole series. The Baby Chase Resident Evil Village. Nobody can land on what the hell is in the basement of House Beneviento. People call it the baby, but I've always referred to it as the giant fetus, which I believe is way more accurate. From its eerie, wailing cries to its bloated, nightmarish form and the horrifying way it consumes anyone unfortunate enough to get caught, everything about it is pure terror. What makes this thing even worse is the complete lack of explanation for its existence. Donna Beneviento specializes in illusions, yet this monstrosity is somehow real because it can properly take you down. Lisa and the Hallway, PT. Choosing the single scariest moment from PT is nearly impossible, but Lisa's first appearance in the hallway is a strong contender. The sheer sight of her looming figure is enough to send chills down your spine, but it's the context that makes it just that extra bit terrifying. As one of the game's earliest scares, it instantly establishes that you're trapped in something far more horrifying than you've ever experienced, and it was one of the first PS4 games. New generation, new scares. PT is often considered one of the scariest games ever made, and this moment, this single image of Lisa staring you down, is probably more famous than the game itself. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.